Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Happy Valentine's Day. Today is Valentine's Day. You probably won't see this on Valentine's Day, but it is Valentine's Day. And I am at my husband's work with this little person. And so I got him a little Valentine's gift, some flowers and chocolate and a giant card. I'm gonna go put it on his truck so that he sees it when he comes out, and then I'm parked right where I can film like his reaction when he gets to his truck and when he sees it. So stay tuned. While we wait, I thought I would give a little bit of an update on my son's ADHD, because I haven't done that since we started medication. And so a lot has happened since then. And also a little bit of a story time with our bad experience with the original doctor that we started with this whole process. We've switched doctors now. So we started medication that one day and he was doing okay for a couple days, and then the symptoms started in, and he had every symptom in the book. It was terrible. He lost his appetite, which was okay. I just made him eat more frequently because he wasn't eating as much at meals. So I was just reminding him to eat every couple hours and giving him lots of snacks and you know, high calorie type foods, not sugar, but like high fat and healthy carbs and stuff like that, to try and keep weight on him. And then his heart rate started going crazy, and then he started getting moody in the afternoons, or like just in general, he started getting real moody. And then he went to visit his dad for a week and came home like not eating at all. And I was like, that really concerned me. So at that point I called the doctor, and his mood swings and his heart rate were concerning me also. But so I called the doctor and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. He's having these symptoms. What can we do? And medication was helping him though, like focus in school and stuff. So my instinct about it, my parental instinct, was just to half his dose. It just seemed like he was getting too much. And obviously I'm not a doctor. I don't know how the medication works, but I called and I was like, I feel like I need to half it. I feel like he doesn't need that much. He's getting too much. And the doctor wasn't really helpful on the phone. She was like, well, I talked to the nurse, but the nurse had consulted with the doctor, obviously, before she called me. And so she was kind of like, we could, you know, do half a dose in the morning and half a dose in the afternoon, because sometimes that will help with like the moodiness in the afternoon, because she explained it as like a high, and then when they come off the medication in the afternoon, it's like an extreme low. But I just didn't feel like he needed that much. I was like, I don't feel like he needs it in the afternoon. I feel like just a lesser dose where, you know, he's just a lot more steady rather than a high and then low lows. To me, it just made sense. dropping my phone. Sorry, guys. It made sense to me just to have it. And so, she was like, well, we could do that, but she's like, we don't really want to do it until we see you. And at that point, I had already decided to switch doctors because of a bad experience that we had had with this doctor. And I'll get into that in a second. But so the doctor that I had switched to, he didn't have an opening for like 3 weeks. And I was like, I'm not continuing on this full dose for 3 whole weeks before we can see the other doctor. So I was like, is it okay if I just go ahead and half it myself and just make that decision? Because she was like, well, we could do this. And she gave me like a few different options. We could, but don't until we see you. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing something because I'm not continuing on like this until I see you in 3 weeks. And so I was like, is it okay if I half it? Like, is that going to harm anything? She's like, no, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. So from that point on, I halved his dose, and he did exponentially better. All of the symptoms went away. It helped enough. It helped him focus enough, and he's still like getting his work done very well, and all of that. And just at home, as far as his behavior at home, it's been so much better. So it was helping, and he wasn't having all of the symptoms and all the stuff that was going on. So we did that, and then so he was on the half a dose for the 3 weeks until we saw the doctor. And then the doctor actually called in a lesser dose because I told him he was doing the second doctor that we saw. He called in and lessened the dose, so now he's on the lesser dose permanently. But so as for the doctor and why we switched, like I said before, with the medication was not my first choice. It was kind of a last resort for me. I looked into every single option. I looked into diet changes. I looked into sleep issues that could be causing it, like anything that could cause ADHD symptoms and not require medication that we could change other ways. And so the original doctor that we had, I had asked her about all of that. I had asked her about the sleep stuff because I told her I don't feel like he's slept well, as long as he's been alive. He's never slept much. So is that something that could be an issue? And she turned to my son and she was like, you just need to go to bed earlier. And I was like, and he tells her, I go to bed at 7 o'clock. She's like, well, what time do you get up? And he's like, 4:30 or 5. She's like, that's 8 hours. He's fine. He's sleeping just fine. She told me that. I was like, okay, just because he goes to bed at 7 doesn't mean that he's falling asleep right away. It doesn't mean that he's sleeping well, that he's not waking up during the night. Like, none of these things. I was just like flabbergasted. Like, I tell you my son's not sleeping well, and you turn to him and tell him to go to bed earlier? Like, what the heck? Which I'm well aware that is an issue with a lot of kids these days. They stay up all night playing video games or whatever, but that's just not the case with my kids. They don't have screens in their room. They hardly have screens during the day, let alone at night. They go to bed at certain times, and he does get up at 4:30 or 5 because that's when I get up, but that doesn't mean that he's not waking up earlier. A lot of times he's awake. My husband gets up for work at 3 because he has to be at work at 5, and a lot of times he's already awake and playing or whatever in his room, and my husband's like, go back to bed. What are you doing, man? So like, I was just so flabbergasted that she didn't want any other information or didn't like ask about any of that, and just tells him to go to bed earlier. That's 8 hours. He's perfectly fine. Like, no asking about him snoring, no asking about any of that, which, by the way, the second doctor did ask about that because I told him about the experience that we'd had with the first doctor, and he was like, well, does he snore? Does he sleep with his mouth open? Like, all these things that are signs of a sleep issue. And she didn't ask about any of that. And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? So anyway, then I asked her about like diet type stuff, you know, foods, and I expressed my concern. I've always had a concern that he might have a food allergy. And so I had asked her about possible food allergies being a cause of his ADHD symptoms and food allergy testing. And when I told her my concerns about him having food allergies from before we ever like considered ADHD, one of the things is that he will just randomly vomit sometimes. And it's not like related to sickness. He's not sick in any other way, but it's just like he'll just out of the middle of nowhere throw up whatever he just ate. And it's like, so, you know, that's always made me concerned, but it never happened frequently enough for us to nail it down to a certain food. And so, because for a long time I did try, I wrote down everything that he ate, and like, well, we went through tons of stuff trying to figure out what that whole thing was. And she gave me a sheet of paper that listed foods that cause, she gave me a list of paper that listed foods that caused migraines. And I was like, what part of that made you think like foods to avoid that might cause migraines? And she told me out loud, she goes, well, if he's out and about and drinks 12 Diet Cokes and comes home and has a headache, you know that it was the aspartame. And I was like, first of all, my son doesn't drink Diet Cokes. Like, second of all, he doesn't have headaches. I never in any of that did I say he had headaches. What? And just like weird stuff like that. And so anyway, so then the other doctor was like, well, red food dyes can cause it, corn syrup, sugar, you know, like actually helpful things that can like heighten ADHD symptoms. But anyway, so that's the experience that we had with the doctor and a little bit of an update on his ADHD. The other doctor is all on board about looking into sleep issues. He doesn't seem to think that that's an issue based on other stuff, but he said it's definitely something that we can dive further into and pay attention to a little bit more, as well as like food allergies. And I had kind of said like that might be something that I want to dive further into during the summer when he's not in school, because really school was the thing that made me probably jump to medication a little bit faster than I would have otherwise. Because I want him to do well in school, and I want him to be able to succeed, and I want him to stop having to struggle through everything and stop having to have teacher phone calls every day. And like that part of it I was like done with and ready to do something. So the medication is helping. I'm grateful for that, and helping with school. He's doing a lot better. And then I asked the doctor, like, summertime, I would like to take him off medication and really dive into this and see if there's another way that we can help him. I don't want to do all of that during the school year when we have all that going on, but something that we'll look into further. So anyway, I have a really good doctor behind us now. He's the doctor that's been Daniel's doctor since he was born, and he's the doctor that was in the room for my last story. If you listen to my birth story, he was the doctor that was in the room when I gave birth, and I really love him. And anyway, so that is that, and we will be right back when my husband comes out to show you his reaction to his gift. Sit back. Sit back. He just saw me. He's embarrassed.